Okay, headers are on. These are the Killer Bee 321 stainless Holy headers. They're actually the same ones we had before. I just had them recoated. There is a place nearby called M&R Performance Coatings that does this. I forget the name of it, but I've mentioned in a previous episode. It's like Cerakote, but it's way better, and it's actually called Turbo Guard or Turbo Tough or something. It held up pretty good for like a spray-on coating. It's not as good as the Swain coating that you can get from Killer Bee, because that's a ceramic coating on the inside and the outside, so it actually insulates better. But that's like a 10-12 week wait time, and this guy does these good. So these were actually recoated, and they look really nice. So I'm gonna flip this thing back over. Just figured I'd give you guys a quick glimpse how nice everything looks. We paired it with some Grimspeed exhaust gaskets, as you saw me put on. It looks really nice. Alright, now we're going to work on the timing. As I said, we won't need this bracket anymore with the new high grip tensioner, which is good because this was the only non-shiny new part on here. I might not have shown you in the other video either, but I got a thermostat housing and the thermostat and put that on, and then that hose that I was missing, that came in, so I popped that on too. We actually need to cut this piece of hose, so I'm going to take it off right here. Not hose, this piece of pipe. I'll kind of show you guys this. This is a little trick if you're running a rotated turbo with no expansion tank that would hang out right there, obviously, because the turbo would hit. You don't need this pipe. So your AOS is going to act like your expansion tank, which would go right there. And I mentioned that with the pipe on the back of the head pointing up. So this is about ready to do the timing on. I will show you the piece that we have been waiting on. Roger Clark's high grip tensioner bracket. IAG makes one as well. Roger Clark was the first. And there it is right there. It's kind of dusty, but comes with the bolts. This is a billet block. Everything's loose right now, you gotta tighten it up. And it comes with the small idler pulley and an offset pulley, which pushes on from that rod there. And so this whole thing goes up here instead of that bracket. It's pretty cool. So we're gonna put that on here, and all the timing components on this car are gonna get Loctited. We're using the Worth thread locker. It's like a gel, it holds good. We wouldn't normally do that, but with this car revving out so high and the amount of power and things vibrating, we're gonna have to Loctite everything. So we're gonna do that now. I changed my mind on the Loctite we're gonna use. I went and picked up some orange. This is the gel form. So this is high strength like the red, but it's removable. It says right there, the red is kind of for objects that don't intend on being removed, and it might be a little risky with the timing components in case we have to replace one for whatever reason. So we're going to use this on all the bolts. I'm going to probably just throw you on the time lapse, put the timing stuff out, and then we'll kind of go over it when I'm done. There's no point in reviewing it in detail. Okay, RCM doesn't give you installation instructions, and these bolts have to be torqued down. They definitely say to use red or orange Loctite. So here's a shot of what it looks like when it's installed. It is very nice. So I just went off of IAG's installation because they give torque values. It's essentially the exact same design and the same bolts and everything, so the torque should be fine. So what they recommend is the three that hold the bracket on, this one, and then the Allen that's behind this, which you saw me put in. These all go to 28.8 foot-pounds. This pulley also goes to 28, or I'm sorry, these go to 18.1 foot-pounds. This goes to 28.8. These two Allens, this bracket is slottable. It says to center them and torque these to 18.1 as well. And then this one gets torqued to the factory spec, but I'm going to leave this one loose because I think I'm going to need to pull it off to put the belt on. So there it is installed. Now we're going to do the inner timing covers and then start building out the timing. All right, inner timing covers are on. Just kind of clean them up a little bit. I was missing the little rubber gasket here, but this motor's going to make a lot of noise anyway, so I'm not too worried about the harmonics of that. The rest of them are tightened up. This timing tensioner guide I had to use for another car, but I've got a new one in the other garage, so I'm going to grab that. So it's time to put the ABCS cam gears and the regular cam gears on. So this is where we got some of the special parts. Obviously these are brand new ABCS cam gears. I always put new ones on fresh motor builds, especially this expensive. You can clean them if you use them on a previous car that has blown up or something. I personally wouldn't risk it. These are like $100 something a piece, so not super cheap, but also not worth, you know, a $10,000 motor. So I put new ones on every time. They look really nice. You will need your covers from the old one, which is fine. So we got left and right hand. So this is a left hand intake, so this one's going to go over here. We'll unbox the other one and put them on, and then make sure I have my caps. And then we'll start putting the timing in. And then on the exhaust side, we have those billet ones from Clark Motorsports as well that we showed you in the first video, because these are normally plastic. So we're going to put those on as well, and then I'll show you when it's all on. Okay, intake ABCS cam gears are on. They get torqued to about 72 foot-pounds. The factory says like 29 foot-pounds and then another 45 degrees, but if you don't have a degree angle finder, it's about 72 foot-pounds, so that's what we do. Now it's time to put in some more Roger Clark goodies. These are the aluminum cam gears. So today's episode is Roger Clark, will you sponsor us? Because we keep putting your stuff on there. So here are the aluminum versions of all of the exhaust cam gears. So I'm going to put these on and torque these down as well, and then we'll start stringing up the belt. I did put some Loctite on these ABCS bolts as well, the same orange. Everything that's going to be spinning fast, so the flywheel, pressure plate, all the timing components, every bolt's going to get Loctited just to be sure. The orange is removable, so hopefully it won't fight us too bad. We can apply some heat if we need to. These bolts are notoriously hard to get off, but ideally, we won't be taking this off for a while, and I would rather have it hold tight than come loose and then have to put some heat on it and struggle with it later. So, about to put these beauties on, and then we'll keep going. Left hand exhaust. Like butter. Really pretty units. They're kind of expensive, but they're, if you're at the point where you need them, they're kind of priceless, because you can spend a couple $100 on them and know that you won't break the cam gears, or you could risk breaking the stock ones and then take out your whole motor. So it's kind of, unfortunately, when you're at this level, pushing this kind of power, you know, we're not going to use a factory belt anymore. Otherwise, which we pretty much use factory belts and everything. You have to add all these extra components. You know, you don't need the high grip tensioner for 400, 500 horsepower. You don't need a Kevlar belt. You can still stick with OEM, but if you're revving past 8,000 RPMs and you're pushing a lot of power, if you're launching it and drag racing it, you're exceeding the limits of the stock capabilities. So this is kind of one of those things where we're putting it on and hoping that it never comes to the point where we find out whether we needed it or not. But this thing is looking amazing with all these parts on there. It's like, obviously I gotta tighten those up, but man. Brand new ABCS gears, Roger Clark exhaust, everything is painted black to match. That tensioner bracket looks really good on the Stage 4 Extreme block. And there's the other side. Some of these things are being reused, like the inner timing covers and stuff, but almost everything on this build is brand new. All right, got the all the cam gears torqued, got the holder on this side. About to put on my favorite belt, the HKS purple Kevlar one. I actually was thinking I was going to go with the STI Kevlar. It's kind of hard to find, just to try a different one. But they're really hard to find, they're more expensive, and I had good luck with this purple one the first time, so we're just going to roll on with this one. I don't think the STI one was any better, I just wanted to try it. So it's got all the factory timing marks on it, it's just like 300% stronger. Oop, I put the crank gear on. But yeah, otherwise it's ready to get timing components on. Alright, so one bad thing about having so many projects going on is that you don't realize you're missing parts until just then. So in the last clip I told you that we were going to put the timing on and that I need to grab the crank sprocket. Well, I can't find it. So I'm going to have to get one of those in. So I'm going to loosen up that holder so that it's not under tension while we're waiting for a few days. And then we're going to actually spin this thing a little bit. We're going to put the up pipe up with the turbo on, and then it's all on V-bands, so I've got it kind of pre-adjusted already, but we're going to mock it up, and then we'll put the gaskets on, the phenolic spacers, the TGVs with the injectors and stuff, and then then we should be good to go. So scratch the timing for right now, we'll do that another time. Okay, so I just mocked the turbo up. I kind of had this pre-oriented already, where it clears these pipes, although I forgot I gotta take this piece off because we're gonna have to cut that. So you can see the headers come out in the front, they go to the knuckle, they come from under here. It's a V-band, then the size is increased to match the hot side of the turbo. We increased it as soon as possible way down here so that the air had time to get to the right speed when it gets to the turbo. So that's all heat treated as well. It looks like it's sitting up high right now, but once you put the manifold on with the TGVs and the phenolic spacers and the filter, this big filter here that will run on it, it fits in there nicely. So the next step is I'm going to actually pull this pipe off and cut it so that I can put the TGVs and stuff on and not touch it again. So this is where the expansion tank would normally go. Obviously we're not going to run that anymore. So the AOS is going to act like the expansion. So on the back of the head, we're going to have that pipe come straight up, and one side of the coolant will go in there. The other one's going to come in right here on this pipe. So we're actually going to remove this whole piece right here. But I still need this bracket to hold this pipe on. So we're going to cut this bracket after this bolt. We're going to cut it here, here, and then take this piece off on the hose, and then that way this piece is still, for the PCV part of it, is still hooked up. Alright, so this is one of the benefits of planning ahead. So obviously it would suck to have to pull the manifold and everything off to do this. So as you can see, I cut it right there and just kind of sanded down the corners some so they're not sharp. I cut the bracket under here, under here. So the PCV portion of that rack that goes from the head over here to this elbow for the crankcase, and then this piece goes back over to this head here. So that's all intact. The only thing we're doing is pulling the coolant portion of it from here. So these two lines that go up to the coolant, instead of the coolant kind of snaking over here to go to the expansion tank, we're leaving it here because this is going to snake out and go to the AOS. Now, even if you wanted to run an expansion tank in a different area, you could still, this has a nice bevel on it still, you could still take it from here, kind of run your own under and over cleanly instead of having that pipe come up and then having it get in the way of the turbo. So now like we have all this extra room over here. So this is a decent idea. It just involves cutting those little tabs, and honestly, if you wanted to put that back, you could put it back and then just make another bracket from one of these bolts up or tack it back onto there. So now we're going to put a layer of these gaskets down, and then we're going to put our phenolic spacers back on. You don't actually have to use these, especially now, but when I had this kit mocked up a few months ago, these were on, so I don't want to take them off in case anything fits differently. And these also help with heat, so we're going to remove the old gasket off the back, put these back on, and then we're going to clean up those TGVs, put our injectors in there, and the fuel rails, which just came in. Okay, the TGVs I use, these are Illuminati. The reason I like these is because they're billet like the IAG or anybody else's, but they use O-rings instead of gaskets. So it's O-ringed on the bottom and on the top. And you can buy replacement O-rings for them, but they're really nice, especially if you take your manifold on and off a few times like we will be. These are really nice. I also hate buying gaskets, so like I don't need to run a gasket on top of this. It'll O-ring on the top. I just have that one on the bottom, and then everything else is V-band and whatnots. Even the throttle body is V-band now. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these new injectors on. These are the biggest ones you can get, ID 2600s. I mean, dimensionally they look the same as like a 1050, but these are the biggest ones they make, 2600s. So we're going to put these in there. We're going to put our new rails on, which I got a cool color this time on to kind of blend in with some of this stuff. And then once these are all assembled, we're going to put some lubricant on the O-rings, and then we're going to get these buttoned down. These look so good. So this is the IAG half-inch fuel rails. They have an adapter on the bottom for a pulse dampener if you need them, but usually you don't. Make sure you put those spacers on. They have little O-rings to hold the bolt through so that it doesn't slide off on you, or you can glue them in. But plug that, put the spacers on, put the injectors on. They should be able to have a little bit of play until there's fluid in them. The O-rings like to tear, so be very careful installing them. So these are the ID 2600s with the half-inch IAG rails on the Illuminati TGV deletes, and they look really nice. So I'm going to do this other one, and then we'll put it on the car. Okay, there we have it. They are on and torqued down. Factory specs, 18.1 foot-pounds for TGV to head, and then the manifold only gets like 6.1 foot-pounds. But man, these look amazing on these brand new heads. Plenty of clearance around AVCS, clearance around the turbo. These look so good on these heads. That's the shot right there. So both sides are on. I'm gonna do the fuel system here soon. I'm gonna get some stuff on order. So I had these reduced down to -6, but I'm gonna keep them -8. So I need to get some 8 ORB to 8 AN male adapters for these, and then we'll lay the harness in, make the fuel rails with the splitter, and should be good to go from there. I'm gonna throw the creme de la creme on there in a second for a mock-up, which is the intake manifold, but I'm not going to bolt it down. I got to get some measurements on it, and then I think we have enough for today's episode, so I think we're going to call it there. We'll talk about the power adder in the next episode. Sorry to tease like that. And then we'll finish out the timing in the next episode as well, and then this thing should be ready to drop in the car. We aren't going to put it in the car with the turbo on or the manifold so that we don't scratch anything, but I need to have the lines mocked up and everything before that. Alright, I've been waiting to do this for a long time. This beautiful Corsa Veloce intake manifold, all the way from New Zealand. Came in a while ago. It's got all the ports underneath it for vacuum lines and whatnot, which we'll need to run. And gotta do some mock-up. I've also put the IAG big bore throttle body on. This thing is huge. It's like 50% bigger than stock. It does use the factory cover that I drilled it out for my other one, and I need to rivet this on. But for right now, we're going to set this on, see how it looks. Should have perfect clearance since I put it on there on the other motor when I went to get it mocked up at the fab shop. Oh, yeah. That is amazing. Honestly, I don't know what my favorite piece is. Like, the turbo is the workhorse, and it looks good, but man, this intake manifold, it's going to flow so much air, and it really looks good with the red rails. So this motor, I wanted to just be black on white like the rest of the car, but the tile bypass, or blow-off valve and wastegate, they come anodized, and I could only get red ones. So I got the IAG fuel rails because they're about the same color red, and these will just kind of act as accent pieces. So the blow-off valve will sit like right here on one of the charge pipes, and then the wastegate sits right there. So when you look at the top of the motor, you'll get a little peak of red here, peak of red here, and then on the rails. And the injectors only come in red anyways, so it kind of all ties in nicely. I don't like to do too many colors, but I think that's really gonna make a difference. So you can see here we've got clearance for our pipe to come around through there, especially with this upper piece gone. We got to do a lot of work under here, so the manifold is gonna be one of the last things to go on, because we have to put all of our sensors under there, our harness, our lines, and some other things that have to do with the power adder. So we are going to kind of take our time with that. But in the next episode, I promise we're going to finish this timing up. We'll lay the harness in. I'm going to reveal the next thing we're going to do for power. So I mentioned this earlier in the video. Those of you that are familiar with Subarus are probably realizing that that turbo is a 6466 with a 105 hot side, which is the big boy. However, that turbo will not make 1,000 horsepower. So you may have started thinking, like, how are they going to do 1,000 horsepower with that turbo? So we're going to talk about that in the next episode, but basically my approach here is to make the most streetable 1,000 horsepower car out there. I could have easily got a way bigger turbo, like a 7176 or even a 6870, that could potentially make 1,000, but they're so laggy that it'd be miserable on the street, kind of like a drag car. So this turbo is the king of street turbos, and it spools like the Zero I had, and it should take us to around 800 wheel with all of these other proper modifications. So then we're going to add one more thing to get us to the 1,000 mark, and I think it's going to be the best all-around package for drivable 1,000 horsepower. So we will discuss that in the next one. Until then, maybe post some ideas in the comments if you can think about what we would be doing to get us that last little bit, and then we're going to discuss it later. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Stay tuned for the next one. We're also going to be putting out more rally car footage from Rise Fab Shop as they're caging it. I'm going to sneak over there and put an update on that build as well. See ya.